So grateful for you to join us on the right side each and every morning. KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller. Don't forget Glenn Beck, Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity, Lars Larson. The gang's all here on your home for Girls with Guns 2019. More details, KIDOTalkRadio.com and the KIDO Talk Radio app. And don't forget, we'll be at Independence Indoor Shooting this Friday. Firing for Freedom. That's right. Stop by, try out a weapon, check out the facility, register for Girls with Guns, or just yap it with me on the radio. It'll be a great time. Almost as good as Jason Pye joining us once again from Freedom Works. It's been a while. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you doing?
You know, I always love the work that y'all do at Freedom Works because it's relevant. You're going, well, Kevin Miller, I hope it's relevant. But sometimes people get too ideologically driven, which is great for passion, but not great for getting things done. Yep. One thing that y'all have been so worried about for years, and rightfully so, Jason, is the growing debt, the growing deficit. It's a bipartisan boondoggle, and we have the latest story out that the deficit's at all-time high. Debt piles up since the election, 25% higher. What type of impact does that have on people from Idaho to Indiana?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I actually just published a piece about this last night or yesterday afternoon because the CBO just put out its long-term budget outlook, and it looks at the federal spending over the next 30 years. And one of the things that they don't specifically talk about this, but one of the things that we know from it's sort of economic theory and study is that once you hit a certain level of debt, it creates what's called a debt drag, and that means it starts to negatively impact the economy, which means it impacts economic growth. It means that one part of that the debt will ultimately cause a contraction in economic growth, and that doesn't mean an overall recession. It just causes the growth to contract slightly, so it wouldn't be as high as it normally would be. It's eventually going to start robbing us of opportunity, and it's going to at some point, down the road, it's going to stop people from buying our debt, because they'll start to question whether we can pay it back, and that becomes a real problem. Interest rates will rise and that means it's going to cost more money for us to in terms of interest payments. It's going to impact the budget negatively. I mean, and I think just in the next few years, something that's not 30 years out, which most people, I think John Maynard Keynes said it, in the long run, we're all dead and we don't have to worry about the budget because we'll be gone, over time. But immediately, interest payments are going to outpace defense spending. This is a real problem. And, Congressman Andy Biggs introduced a piece of legislation, is a resolution just recognizing that the national debt is a national security threat. And he's absolutely right. And that's actually echoing something Admiral Mike Mullen said 10 years ago or so, that the national debt is the biggest national security threat we face. We have to start making some tough choices and having adult conversations about the problems with our federal spending, and that ultimately 65% of that's mandatory spending, and that's entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. We have to start having those conversations.
Well, let's start right now. Jason Pye joining us, Freedom Works from Washington, D.C. with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And we'll go into, obviously, what the Democrats are promising, but, what needs to be done. Jason, if you were the head of debt reduction, I mean, Dave Ramsey teaches us about tearing up our credit cards, but is there a simple way, maybe a hard way, for us to get back on track?
One of the things on Medicare would be premium support, basically giving people a voucher so they can go buy private health insurance coverage on the individual market. That would be one way to start addressing the problems with Medicare. But in terms of like the overall healthcare picture, I mean, look, we've been working on internally and having conversations about like this court case that's going through Texas versus the United States. It deals with whether, since they've repealed the individual mandate, or eliminated the individual mandate, whether the rest of Obamacare can stay in place, like the protections for people with pre-existing conditions, or another aspect of Obamacare known as community rating. Based on the oral arguments that happened in the Fifth Circuit yesterday, it doesn't seem like the votes are there to allow Obamacare to stay in place as it is. Now, ultimately, this is going to go to the Supreme Court, but what the question we've been asking ourselves internally is if Supreme Court, once this case goes there, strikes down parts of Obamacare because the individual mandate's not in place, like we have to be there and ready to go with some sort of alternative. Like these are our ideas for healthcare reform that are workable. And one of those is bolstering. It's decoupling health insurance from employment, which a lot of people don't realize 90% of all healthcare expenditures in this country are paid for by a third party. Only 10% of insurance costs are paid for by individuals or out-of-pocket costs, ultimately individuals. Decoupling that from employment and putting people in the individual market would bring premiums down. It would also make insurance companies more responsive to consumers, which I think is ultimately the problem with our health insurance system today. This is not a single-payer Medicare for all solution where everybody wants, the Democrats and socialist Democrats want the government to run all health insurance and ban all private health insurance. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is empowering consumers with their health care dollars to get the plans they want, not the plans that a third-party administrator or their employer pick for them. I think that's one way to go that will ultimately bolster individual health insurance in the country, and that's something like post ACA that we're talking about.
Jason Pye joining us from Freedom Works, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So we hear from the Democrats and, of course, the Republicans, but on the campaign trail, Medicare, Medicaid for all, the Green New Deal, they don't seem very fiscally responsible. I mean, if we had the money tree, it would be great. But, how do you again, they're going to say anything they want, Jason, on the campaign trail. But, I mean, to make these things a reality would bankrupt us, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, single-payer health insurance, and most conservative estimates, and this is from the Urban Institute, is $32 trillion over 10 years. That's going to come with enormous tax hikes that wouldn't be sustainable, would hurt everyone, rob Americans of opportunity, no matter what, whether you're lower middle class or upper class, it's going to rob you of opportunity and also leave you with a mountain of debt to boot. So that's ultimately point number one, right out of the gate. That's the problem. And as I mentioned before, Medicare for All, as proposed by Senator Sanders and Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, those bills would ban private health insurance. It says this in the bill. I think it's section 107 of the Medicare for All Act. Explicitly says it's unlawful for any insurance company or anyone to offer anything that would compete with the federal government, what they're offering through Medicare for All. So it kills competition ultimately, and it's going to just that's why I say that $32 trillion estimate is probably conservative at the end of the day. Now, some Democrats have said, well, Medicare for All goes too far. What we need is a public option. We need to either expand Medicaid or further to make it a public option available on the Obamacare exchanges, or we need to have some sort of public option through Medicare that Americans can buy into. The problem with that is, and that may sound attractive to some people, and some people say, well, what's wrong with a little bit of competition, through Medicare? Medicare pays 87 cents on the dollar. They can undercut. That's what they reimburse to providers. So Medicare will be able to come in and undercut private health insurance companies. It will make private health insurance their offerings unattractive compared to Medicare, and ultimately it will cause a adverse selection and a death spiral in health insurance markets where people will no longer buy private health insurance coverage, and they'll opt out. They'll opt into Medicare because it's cheaper, and private health insurance will eventually collapse. It's a backdoor way to eliminate private health insurance coverage. It's not competition at all.
Is there anyone in Congress with a rationale that understands this and says, hey, guys, we have to do something that isn't drowned out by the spending freaks on both sides?
I mean, Congressman Chip Roy and Congressman Andy Biggs have introduced a bill just before the recess, the July 4th recess, that is, it's kind of an interesting notion. They're calling it health freedom accounts, and health freedom accounts basically are expanding HSAs, health savings accounts, which are already on the market and about 22 million Americans take advantage of, expanding HSAs basically matching almost what the standard deduction is for when you file your taxes every year. So $12,000 for an individual and $24,000 for a family. So this is something I think that is a real opportunity because it does over time decouple health insurance from employment, makes it more attractive. It makes it portable. You can take it from job to job because, the average American is going to have 12 jobs over the course of their life, their working career. and that means they're going to have probably 12 different insurance plans. But this one would allow you to come into a job, have that insurance plan. It's something you can take with you no matter where you go in employment. So you may have 12 different jobs or however many different jobs, but you could theoretically have the same insurance plan if you wanted to. So that's an aspect and something that we think is a way to ultimately lower healthcare costs, make insurance companies more responsive to Americans, as well as solve the pre-existing condition problem over time, because there'll be so many more people coming into the individual market that the costs of the cost that people with pre-existing conditions see will eventually be lower because there'll be so many more healthy and younger people inside the individual market. So it really addresses that problem as well. So that's one avenue we've seen that we really like. There are other avenues we've seen that we really like, including what the administration just did with health reimbursement accounts. I actually have an op-ed this morning at realclearmarkets.com that talks about the health reimbursement rule arrangement and what it does for individuals and how it could lower healthcare costs. So that's all something that these are all avenues that kind of go along the theme of decoupling insurance from employment, allowing making insurance companies more responsive to consumers, and ultimately changing the narrative, maybe not immediately, but eventually, in terms of how we talk about insurance in the United States.
Jason Pye, check him out at FreedomWorks. We appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. Have a good one, buddy.
You too. All right, Jason Pye joining us. In-depth, insightful, informative conversation about the issues that impact us. Let's hear from you, Brad in Boise. Thank you for your patience. You're on with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brad. Hello, Brad. There we go.
Good morning, Kevin.
Hey, Brad. Welcome.
So you're talking about the Ada County wanting to put in new buildings and for county services. And when I go to the license division, it's like only a third to a half of the windows are staffed. What's up with that? They have 20, 25 windows there that you can go to, and they're only half staffed. That's a big bottleneck.
Well, it's all those people from West Ada, which I happen to live in, that don't want to travel to downtown Boise, it appears. That's where all the population is, so we're going to build a facility for those folks.
Okay, so if they're going to do that, like they took the motor vehicle division and put it into empty retail space over on Franklin, about a quarter mile away from the driver's license bureau. Why not find some open retail space and go in there rather than build a new building for it?
I totally agree with you. I am a big fan of state, local, county government using empty retail space. You look at what CWI has done, you look at what other people have done, much more affordable than buying the land, building it yourself, big money that we can't afford.
And you kind of brushed over the fact that at the driver's license division, half or more of those windows are not staffed. And so you want to talk about a waste of the customer's time right there. They complain about the long lines and long wait. Well, hire the people to staff the windows you have available. That would help a lot. I don't understand what's going on with that.
No, Brad, I think you made your point. That's why I glossed over it. But you're right. Everything should be staffed. Everything should be at the highest capacity. And if they can't handle it, if people are taking too long on their lunch breaks or taking time off or talking to Gladys down the hall, they need to be focused on serving the customer. County government, along with private property, private businesses, should be focused on serving the customer, that's what we are.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Have fun at Independence.
All right, Brad. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Tom in Nampa with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Kevin. I wish you could have had a chance to talk to your guest. I just almost got clipped on the highway.
Uh-oh.
Anyway.
Look out, brother.
Yeah, tell me about it. Anyway, has any of the Democrats said, or has anybody asked them, will this one payer for all apply to Congress? Because of the care system. I would really like an answer to that one.
I'd like it to apply to Congress. I'd like it to apply to their staff.
Uh-huh. And second question, has anybody determined how much of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, et cetera, is lost to fraud, waste, and abuse.
Ooh.
Because I got a feeling we could get healthy real quick if everybody that was playing the system, and I don't mean just some schmo in the hinterland padding his account, but I'm talking about the medical corporations and stuff like that. They had one doctor had 15 patients that didn't exist that he was billing for, and nobody caught him for years.
Well, and you talk to like Tom, you talk to like the good medical people, and they'll go, "Hey, there's nothing we can do about it." But to me, people that get into medicine, they get into it to serve. Yet, unfortunately, whether it's big pharma, big insurance, big medical, they become like all of us, cogs in the wheel, and they are subservient under the thumb of the almighty buck.
Well, Kevin, I hate to tell you this, but that, in my opinion, is like the honest cop who doesn't turn in the crooked cop.
Yeah.
If some guy is bilking Medicaid, he's taking money away from the old people that really need that medicine, that operation, that treatment. One of the elements I've been told to get a murder one conviction is depraved indifference to human life, is the legal phrase. They're taking medicine away from old people, and that's what they're doing if they're stealing money. That's depraved indifference to human life in my book. I would love to see some of these doctors and medical corporations that are ripping off the old people, or some baby that desperately needs an operation. They're stealing from them. They're endangering at a minimum, they're endangering their lives, possibly ending them.
Well, then who would be in charge of doing that, Tom? Would that be the Attorney General or what?
Well, there's got to be some internal checking on how the money gets spent in Medicare, isn't there? I mean, the Office of Management and Budget's got internal people.
Yeah, but you remember the Truman Commission that caught all the war profiteering. Maybe it's Congress. Maybe it's somebody. I don't think you want the wolves guarding the hen house. But who's going to turn anybody in? You're right. It's a very valid issue, but that nobody talks about, and apparently nobody enforces.
Well, perhaps a dose of morality might be a good idea. Yeah. Or
that would be welcome.
Do this. Set up a bureaucracy whose budget only comes from money they find being embezzled. A predatory bureaucracy that feeds on other bureaucracies. Huh. They don't get paid unless they find somebody cheating.
Huh. Tom,
that will motivate them.
Tom, you stay safe on the road, brother.
I hope so.
Ha! Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And to our friend Max and Tea Party Bob, I know it's been a while. Hang on, plus more of your phone calls. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, remembering the great Rip Torn. Now, maybe you don't know who Rip Torn was, one of the great character actors of all time, died at the age of 88. Rip Torn was in Men in Black and a variety of movies, but for me, he'll always be remembered as Artie on the Larry Sanders Show. Now, Gary Sandling's humor was probably a lot like this show. Maybe you didn't get it at first. I certainly didn't. And if you were a fan of Seinfeld, you'll love the Larry Sanders Show. I think you can get it on HBO or YouTube. YouTube has some great clips. And basically, it's a behind-the-scenes look, well before The Office, well before Seinfeld, of how people in entertainment politics really are. Truly, it is a remarkable comedy. Some good, some bad, but Artie, played by Rip Torn, was Larry's protector, his producer, his semi-manager. And in this clip from YouTube on KIDO Talk Radio, this is the magic of Rip Torn.
No, but I'd like
I'm not sure that anyone wants to hear what you got to say, young lady. I don't take this as a threat, but I killed a man like you in Korea, hand to hand. My boy doesn't want to do any more commercials. From now on, you'll talk to me. Understood?
There we have it, Rip Torn. God rest his soul. Phone number's 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And I don't know if John Decker was a fan of the Larry Sanders Show, but what a loss, remembering the great Rip Torn. John, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Of course I remember that program, and Rip Torn was a great element of that program, and a fun show, a funny show, and Gary Shandling, another big loss that we have with his passing at a very young age, by the way, I might add. I think he was in his 60s, if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, yeah, sad news to hear of that loss, but he lived a pretty long life. I think he died, he was around 88 years old.
88 dead, but what the magic of people making us smile through the scripts of writers. John Decker joining us, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. So, speaking of more bad news, apparently the president can't ban people from his Twitter account.
That's exactly right. So this is a decision that came out yesterday. It was an appellate court decision. The president lost at the district court level, and this appellate court decision was unanimous. All three judges wrote that the First Amendment does not permit a public official like the president who utilizes social media like Twitter for official purposes to exclude people because they express views with which the official disagrees. And so this applies to all public officials, including lawmakers on both the left and the right. And no comment from the White House. I doubt very much that they will appeal this appellate court decision.
Well, it's fascinating in the age of social media that this would be an issue legally. I don't think any other president really had to worry about banning people from Twitter.
Well, President Barack Obama, I believe, was the first president who utilized Twitter, not certainly as much as President Trump does, but, if you're a private citizen, you can certainly block people on Twitter. I thought this ruling does not apply to private individuals, in their private life, but this has to do with public officials like president and senators and congressmen, et cetera. Those individuals cannot block anyone from their Twitter account.
John, anything else that we have to look forward to this week? Obviously, the president highly critical of the judge appointed by President Obama concerning the citizenship question, concerning changing teams within the Department of Justice. It's never a dull moment. I know that's cliche, but it truly is the life you're living.
No, but you're right, and it isn't. The news cycle moves so incredibly quickly. There's so many stories. I look and see the stories that I did yesterday for Fox News, and they're all over the map. Whether you're talking about the president and the census, or Tom Steyer joining the race, or the Twitter ruling that we just discussed, or the labor secretary, Alex Acosta. So much happening just yesterday in the past 24 hours. So, yes, there's a lot going on, that's for sure. And Secretary Acosta will make some remarks this afternoon from the Labor Department. I think this is all aimed at trying to hold on to his job because, quite frankly, when he was U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Florida 10 years ago, he signed off on a plea bargain deal that was quite the deal. 13 months in prison for a repeated sexual offender, a pedophile, as opposed to life in prison, which is what he could have received. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And that 13-month prison sentence was one in which the individual, Mr. Epstein, could actually leave prison to go home 6 days a week. I never heard of such a prison sentence in my life. So this is the reason why he's under fire. It's also the reason why, Kevin, no Republican lawmaker in the House or the Senate has come to Mr. Acosta's defense.
John, do you have a minute or you got to go?
No, I have some time for you. What's going on?
All right. Max and Tea Party Bob, hang on. But if you could put on your attorney's hat, we've heard from various reports that the government, the motivation for cutting a deal with Mr. Epstein was that this is one of the rare cases because of his immense wealth that the government might be outgunned. The witnesses would be put through the ringer. So that's why they, agreed to this very generous plea deal. You as an attorney, your thoughts on making that case. Does that really happen anymore where the government feels they're outgunned, so they're going to cut a deal to avoid, a prolonged trial that could cause an acquittal?
This particular case is one in which your listener, is just missing a key part of the prison sentence, and that is the 13-month prison sentence allowed this individual who has had to register as a sex offender, allow this individual to go home to his home, sleep in his bed 6 nights a week. That to me is not a prison sentence. That's not punishment. And, I think that for anybody out there who's listening, think about a loved one who's close to you. Imagine they were a victim of a sexual offender. Would a 13-month prison sentence like the one that I just described be satisfactory to you? And my guess is the answer is no. You want that person probably put away for the rest of their life. So that's my answer to your listener. That's why I think that you're seeing not one Republican in the House or the Senate come to Mr. Acosta's defense in any way and defend this sweetheart deal that he signed off on as the U.S. Attorney.
John Decker, we always appreciate the insight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day. Have a good one, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Tea Party Bob, hang on. My man Max is next. Good morning, Max.
Hey, good morning. A quick comment about registering your automobiles. I've heard a number of arguments as to why the state levies a hybrid vehicle fee when you register your car. But they're just lame excuses. Why do you think it is that when you buy a hybrid or an electric automobile that the county feels, you know what, we can go ahead and literally double the registration? What's wrong with this picture?
All I can remember is many years ago, former Governor Otter said to me that he didn't like it that the little hybrids didn't pay as much taxes or gas tax as he did with his big truck.
Yeah, but that's a politician talking, and they're all a bunch of liars, including our current governor.
Oh my goodness gracious, Max!
Oh, come on! I'm gonna stop this food tax. Well, maybe next year. He's the shame on him, shame on me governor. And I'm waiting to see if he's going to lie to us twice in a row. But the other matter I wanted to quickly graze over, you had a caller about 3 callers back talking about how we should find a way to stop Medicare and Medicaid fraud, be it by doctors or patients. The answer is simple. You know the Crime Stoppers program where you drop a dime, snitch on somebody,
sure,
get a reward? Set up rewards. According to the FBI, the most effective way of tracking down a suspect is by offering a big reward. Maybe.
Who would pay for the reward?
Okay, we would, but understand we would save, instead of, let's say this guy's doing $1 or $2 million in medical fraud. That's not a big number. You pay somebody $10,000 for snitching him out. That equals savings to me. It's like buy one, get one free.
Max, let's throw it out to the listening public.
Okay, other than that, keep up the good work. I'm sitting here and listening and, just wasting my time. You take care, my friend.
God bless. Boom, boom, boom. Tea Party Bob joins us now. Gem State Patriot. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you?
I got a good one for you.
Yeah?
Now, you're from New York, right?
Yes.
So how many times, and most of us never will get to go to Niagara Falls. And look, I'm interested. I'm going to try and sneak to Shoshone Falls. I've been trying to do that since I've been here. And they call that the Niagara of the West. But Niagara Falls is pretty impressive, right?
I've been there, and to be very honest with you, it is slightly impressive, but I would go to Shoshone Falls just as well. It's a very, very impressive place to go to also.
Well, I can't wait to check out Shoshone, comparing it to Niagara. Now, Niagara, you've got all the casinos and everything else there, but get this. A man who was swept over the largest waterfall at Niagara Falls on Tuesday morning miraculously survived the plunge, according to police. Now, that's a 167-foot drop, walked away with non-life-threatening injuries. We're talking about the Horseshoe Falls. Now, I don't know. It was like 4 a.m. I don't know what the guy was doing. He climbed over the retaining wall and was swept away and survived.
Well, God must have wanted him alive for a reason. So there he
Man,
is.
they found him sitting on rocks after they searched the lower river. If anyone has ever been, or you can YouTube it, that thing is powerful.
Oh, it is. There's no question about it.
I wouldn't go over a barrel in that, but I digress. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, we alerted your audience about the foregone taxes on Friday, and I'm glad to see that many of them attended the meeting because it's the only way we're going to change things. When the public gets involved and we have an opportunity to stop the pork spending that goes on in the state, government needs to be held accountable, and it doesn't happen often enough in our state. And when you speak of rhinos, they don't just exist in Washington. They're very prominent in many of our state governments, especially here in Idaho.
Not here.
Oh, well.
We don't have any rhinos.
Yeah, rhinos are the politicians that cater to lobbyists, chamber of commerce, corporations, and special interest groups to help them move legislation, of course, beneficial to them. Idaho has been dealing with rhinos for the past 20 years, and I will tell you that it's hurt the state more than any of the free spending Democrats could have. There are so many backroom deals that siphon off tax dollars away from private special interest groups that have put a much larger tax burden on a citizen area. Just look at the urban development projects that have been used to help the developers at taxpayer expense. Take the sales tax. The sales tax is one of the largest revenue generators in our state. Most people don't realize the many special interest groups that are able to avoid the 6% sales tax through special exemptions. And this is something that costs us tens of millions of dollars of foregone revenue, and nobody knows about it. These rhinos cost taxpayers millions each year and get elected year after year because they're so well funded by the special interest groups. Now, if you want to fix this state, the people have to educate themselves and understand how the politicians pull the wool over their eyes every election year. Do not believe any politician that says they're going to lower your taxes because in most cases, they're lying to you. This state gives more tax breaks and tax money percentage-wise to special interests than any other state I've lived in. We need a business person or more business people.
Look, you had a chance to run for governor.
I'm too old to run for governor. We need some young people in there, and the only way we can do that is to change the way we pay our people.
Don't blame me. I voted for Tommy.
Kevin, Tommy's a nice guy, but he wasn't the fix of the problem. Taxpayers need to be reminded of the purchase of Hewlett-Packard building an overpriced dollar amount of $125 million.
Well, that's on the low end.
Yeah, or does anybody remember the Wi-Fi fiasco that cost our schools tens of millions of dollars?
Right, and no one was prosecuted for it. No one lost their job for it. And then, the sum of all fears, we could go on and on about the fight clubs in the prison and everything else.
Well,
you're right.
There was a scandal that cost millions in taxpayer money and no investigation whatsoever.
Where were you?
That's a joke.
Where were you?
Well, I was complaining about it, and I complained about it every time I had an opportunity.
You and me both.
This is money thrown down the drain.
Yeah.
And when we see the cost of this Medicaid expansion, nobody realizes it yet. I keep telling you. It was brought to Idaho through the insurance, medical, and big pharma corporation through false advertising. That will be the real killer for this state in terms of tax.
Well,
and I don't care how fast we're growing. We can't grow fast enough for this freebie.
All right, freebie.
You have a great day today,
Thank you for your patience.
Hey, listen, being patient with you is just like being on Medicaid.
If I could give you a hug, I would.
Well, I'll be here. You'll see me in a couple of weeks, maybe sooner.
Yeah, you come down and you don't hang out with us anymore.
Well, when I come down, I try to hang out with you.
I appreciate you, brother. We love you.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good time with the girls with guns.
We will. God bless. Bye-bye. Our great friend Tea Party Bob joining us, the king of New Meadows, Idaho. Speaking of money, our great friend Ron Grant joining us, the original Safer Money specialist. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are we doing today?
Pretty good. We're just talking about money and, the federal deficit blowing up. Everybody wants to hold on to their money. And could you tell us here at KIDO Talk Radio how people can keep their money? And when we're talking about keeping their money safe, how can they do that?
Well, back in 08, 09, when the market tanked almost 50%, Kevin, my clients and I, we got a zero. And a zero is always better than a loss. We get to participate in some of the upside of Wall Street, but never the downside. And what I do for my clients is I can get them a reasonable range of return. I can get them a guaranteed lifetime income that they can't outlive, all while paying no fees to their financial planner, their stockbroker, their 401k company, et cetera. And the nice thing about it is, that lifetime income, the top 1% of our nation gets income from multiple sources. Why wouldn't you?
That's a good point. Now, we're going to be talking about this Saturday at 2, right?
We're going to be 2 to 3. We're going to be talking about educating these people here in the Treasure Valley on how to keep that money 100% safe where they can't lose that principal or the gains. It's just too hard to earn. Why would we want to lose it?
Well, that's a good point. And you like the cars, don't you?
I do. I'm into classic cars. I'm a Ford guy. I hope nobody holds that against me. The Chevy guys always beat me up. But, yep, I have a 57 F100 short box, and I have a 71 Ranchero GT that I'm working on and building.
Well, you wait till you hang out with all the classic car people here. We got a lot of that going on, Ron.
I can't wait to get there, boy. Believe me, I want to see them, and I want to ride with them, and I want to hang out with them. So I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of which, if people want to get a hold of you, what can they do? They can give me a call. My phone number, local number here is 208-660-1372. They can also email me, Ron, at safermoneyspecialist.com. And those are the two ways that you can hook up with me. Well, we can't wait to hear what you have to say Saturday at 2, brother. I'm waiting. Can't wait to get with you and educate the lovely people here in the Treasure Valley. Ron, you have a great day. You too. Have a great day, Kevin. That's our great friend, Ron Grant. Remember, you can catch the Safer Money Solution Show every Saturday at 2 right here on KIDO Talk Radio. And bringing us home, Liberal Steve.
Good morning, Idaho. Never fear. Liberal Steve is here with wisdom, knowledge, and truth to sit you over to the Democratic side. Anyway, Epstein had digital cameras, I am sure, all over that plane and any plane that he was ever in. And I'll bet you he's got some interesting movies. So I don't think he's going anywhere. In fact, he better watch his back because, woo! And Tea Party Bob, I heard, since he moved up there to New Meadows, they're thinking about changing the name to Old Meadows. You hear that, people? He's always saying people. Have fun and enjoy life. See you at the zoo.
Ray, great job. Jared, great job. Everybody else, great job. God bless.